Daddy, you're doing it wrong again. Ethan Cole's fingers fumbled with the strands of his daughter's hair, losing his grip on what was supposed to be the right section of the French braid. The YouTube video on his propped up phone showed a woman's hands moving with effortless precision, weaving hair like it was the simplest thing in the world. For her, maybe it was. For Ethan, it was his 47th attempt at mastering a skill that still felt impossible. I'm following the tutorial exactly, he muttered, rewinding the video for the third time in 2 minutes. Ella sat perfectly still at their small kitchen table, her dolphin book open in front of her, reading about echolocation while her father waged war with her hair. She was 8 years old, patient in ways that broke his heart sometimes. Patient because she'd learned to be. Patient because she understood, even at 8, that her father was trying his best. The lady in the video makes it look easy, Ella said, without looking up from her book. The lady in the video probably went to braid school. There's no such thing as braid school, Daddy. There should be. The alarm on his phone buzzed. 6:15. Ella needed to be at school by 8. He needed to be at the construction site by 7:15 for the pre-shift meeting. That left 45 minutes to finish this braid, make breakfast, pack lunch, and somehow get them both out the door, looking like functional human beings. The apartment was cold. Ethan had turned the heat down 3 degrees to save on the electric bill. Small adjustments that added up over the month. 3 degrees here, shorter showers. There, lights off in every room they weren't actively occupying. The math of poverty had become second nature. He could calculate the cost benefit analysis of every decision in the time it took most people to breathe. Coffee was brewing in the $15 Mister coffee maker he'd bought at Walmart 3 years ago, right after Sarah's funeral. He'd stood in the small appliances aisle, staring at espresso machines that cost more than his weekly paycheck, and grabbed the cheapest option that would make something caffeinated and hot. It had been one of 1,000 small practical decisions he'd made in those first weeks. Grief didn't give you time to care about quality. You just needed things that worked. There, Ethan said, securing the end of the braid with an elastic. Done. Ella hopped down from her chair and ran to the bathroom mirror. Ethan followed, watching her inspect his work. The braid was crooked, listing slightly to the left, with a few loose strands already escaping near her temple. But it was a braid, recognizably a braid. That counted for something. It's perfect, Ella declared. It's not perfect. It's perfect for me. She hugged him around the waist, her head barely reaching his rib cage. Ethan closed his eyes and held her, this small person who thought crooked braids were perfect, who never complained when they ate pasta. 3 nights in a row, who'd learned to read price tags at the grocery store and quietly put back the things she knew they couldn't afford. 3 years. 3 years since Sarah died and left him to figure out how to be both parents. 3 years of YouTube tutorials and budget spreadsheets and parent teacher conferences where he was the only dad in a sea of mothers. 3 years of crooked braids and burnt dinners and bedtime stories read in a voice hoarse from pretending everything was fine. What do you want for breakfast? He asked. Can we have the good cereal? The good cereal. Ella's code for the name brand stuff, the kind with the cartoon character on the box, that cost $2 more than the store brand. Ethan did the mental math. Checking account balance $287. Rent due in 6 days $850. Next paycheck Friday $463 after taxes. Electric bill $147 due today. The numbers didn't add up. They never added up. Every month was a game of Tetris trying to fit expenses into income, moving things around, paying some bills late, making minimum payments on others, hoping nothing unexpected happened because there was no margin for error. Sure, baby. Good cereal today. Ella's face lit up like he'd promised her Disney World. $4.99 for a box of cereal, and she looked at him like he'd hung the moon. While she ate, Ethan packed her lunch. Peanut butter and jelly on the cheap bread, an apple, a juice box from the discount pack, string cheese, crackers. He'd learned to make lunches that looked full, that made it seem like they had plenty, even when plenty was a relative term. Other kids had Lunchables and fruit snacks and cookies from the bakery. Ella had PB and J and apples, and she never complained. Not once. Not ever. Daddy, Ella said through a mouthful of cereal. Don't talk with your mouth full. She swallowed. Is it Friday? Thursday. Her shoulders sagged slightly. Friday was pizza day at school. Thursday was what the kids called mystery meat, though Ethan suspected it was just Salisbury steak with an undeserved reputation. Can we have pizza for dinner instead? $12 if he used a coupon. $12 that could go toward the electric bill or the gap between this week's groceries and what they actually needed, or the slowly growing pile of medical bills from Sarah's final months that he was still paying off in $25 increments. But Ella was looking at him with those eyes, Sarah's eyes, hopeful and trusting, and already learning that disappointment was more common than joy. Pizza Thursday, Ethan said. Why not? Really, really. She launched herself at him again, wrapping her arms around his neck. Cereal breath and morning warmth and pure, uncomplicated happiness. $12. Worth it. Worth every penny. And then some. The morning routine continued with practiced efficiency. Teeth brushed, backpack checked, homework folder verified, lunchbox packed, jacket on, despite Ella's protests that it wasn't that cold. Shoes tied, hair checked one more time in the mirror. Front row tonight, right, Daddy? Ella asked as they headed for the door. Ethan's hand froze on the doorknob. The talent show, 7:30. He'd promised her front row center seat, the same spot Sarah used to occupy at every school performance. The same spot that had become his spot, his way of showing Ella that even though Mom was gone, Dad was still here, still showing up, still keeping promises. Front row center seat, he confirmed. I already marked it on my calendar. You promise, I promise. They walked to the car, Ella's hand in his, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. The morning sun was just starting to burn off the chill. Ethan helped her into the back seat, buckled her in, checked twice to make sure the belt was secure. Love you, baby, he said. Love you too, Daddy. He closed the door and walked around to the driver's side, already running through the day schedule in his head. Drop Ella off. Drive to the site. Work until noon. Lunch break. Packed and lunch not bought. Save the money. Work until 5. Pick up Ella from after school program. Home by 5:30. Dinner. Homework. Get her ready for the show. Leave by 7. Arrive by 7:15. Front row by 7:20. Show at 7:30. It would work. It had to work. Ethan had no way of knowing that by 7:30 tonight he'd be breaking the promise he'd just made. That he'd be making a choice that would cost him everything he'd built. That the crooked braid and the good cereal and the pizza Thursday would be the last normal morning they'd have for a very long time. But that was still 12 hours away. For now, he had a daughter to get to school and a promise to keep. Or so he thought. The photograph on the refrigerator had been there so long that Ethan sometimes forgot to see it. But this morning, while Ella finished her cereal, his eyes caught on Sarah's face, frozen at 32, laughing at something outside the frame, baby Ella on her hip. The photo was held up by a magnet shaped like a sunflower, Sarah's favorite flower. Ethan couldn't remember who'd taken the picture or what had made Sarah laugh. Those details had faded, but the feeling remained joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. Mommy used to make the braid in 3 minutes, Ella said, following his gaze. Ethan's throat tightened. I know, baby. I'm getting faster, though. You are. Last week, it took forever. Thanks for noticing my progress. Ella smiled, then went quiet, studying the photo. She did this, sometimes went still and thoughtful, and Ethan knew she was trying to hold on to memories that were slipping away. She'd been 5 when Sarah died. 5 years old, and already she was forgetting. The way her mother's voice sounded, the songs she used to sing, the bedtime routine that was theirs alone. Do you think Mommy would be proud of me? Ella asked. The question cut deep. Baby Mommy would be so proud of you, she'd probably cry. Why would she cry if she was proud? Because sometimes when you're really happy, the happy is so big it has to come out as tears. Ella considered this, her face serious. Do you ever cry because you're happy about me? All the time. I've never seen you. I'm sneaky about it. She giggled, the sound breaking the heaviness that had settled over the kitchen. Ethan stood and cleared her bowl, rinsing it in the sink, buying himself a moment to breathe. The photo of Sarah watched him. Sometimes he felt her presence like a weight, the ghost of the life they were supposed to have lived. Other times she felt distant, a person from another lifetime. Both feelings were true. Both hurt. Sarah had been sick for 8 months. Breast cancer, aggressive and cruel, moving through her body faster than the treatments could fight it. Ethan had watched her shrink, watched the light in her eyes dim, watched her fight and fail, and finally accept what was coming. Near the end, when the morphine made her days blend into nights, she'd made him promise things. Take care of Ella. Make sure she knows she's loved. Don't let her forget me, but don't make me into a saint. I was just a person, Ethan. A regular person who loved you both. And then, in one of her last clear moments, promise me something else. Anything. Teach Ella to help people, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's what makes us human, not being perfect, just being willing. He'd promised, held her hand, and promised. 3 days later, she was gone. Now, 3 years later, he was still trying to keep that promise. Still trying to teach Ella about kindness in a world that didn't always reward it. Still trying to be both parents, knowing he'd never be enough. Ella hopped down from her chair and went to her backpack, pulling out a piece of construction paper. I made this in art class yesterday. The drawing showed three stick figures. One tall, with dark hair, Ethan. One small, with a crooked braid, Ella. And one with wings floating above them, Sarah. The angel version of Sarah was smiling, her stick figure arms spread wide like she was hugging them from heaven. Miss Chen said we should draw our families, Ella explained. I drew all of us. Ethan took the drawing with shaking hands. It's beautiful, baby. I wanted to make sure Mommy was still in our family, even though she's gone. She is. She always will be. That's what I thought. Ella took the drawing back and carefully placed it in her folder. I'm going to hang it in my room. She skipped off to her bedroom, leaving Ethan alone in the kitchen with Sarah's photograph and the weight of 3 years of grief he'd been carrying alone. He'd tried therapy once, couldn't afford it. Tried a support group for widowed parents, couldn't find the time. Tried dating briefly, disastrously, before realizing he wasn't ready, and might never be. Sarah had been his person, his best friend, his partner in the daily chaos of life. Without her, everything was harder. Not impossible, but harder. Like learning to write with your non-dominant hand. You could do it technically, but it never felt natural. Ella came back, backpack secured, ready for school. Can we visit Mommy this weekend? The cemetery was 20 minutes away. They went once a month, brought flowers from the grocery store, talked to a headstone like it could hear them. Ella would update Sarah on school and friends and whatever book she was currently reading. Ethan would stand there feeling useless, wanting to give his daughter a mother who could respond. Saturday, he promised, we'll bring sunflowers. Her favorite, her favorite. They walked to the car together, Sarah's memory between them like a third person, silent but present. Ethan wondered sometimes if he was doing this right, keeping her alive in Ella's mind without making her into a shrine. Was he talking about Sarah too much? Not enough. How did you parent through grief while teaching your child that grief didn't have to define you? He didn't have answers, just daily attempts, just crooked braids and drawings with angels and promises to visit graves on Saturdays. Sarah would have known what to do. Sarah always knew. But Sarah was gone, and Ethan was still here, fumbling forward, hoping that trying was enough. The drive to school took 12 minutes in morning traffic. Ella chattered the whole way about the talent show, about the song she'd practiced, about how nervous she was, about how she'd almost forgotten the words yesterday, but remembered them just in time. And you'll be in the front row, she asked for the third time that week. Front row, center seat, Ethan confirmed, pulling into the drop-off lane. That's where Mommy always sat. I know. Now it's your spot. The words settled over him, heavy with meaning. It wasn't just a seat, it was a tradition, a promise, a way of saying you matter more than anything, more than work, more than exhaustion, more than the thousand other demands on his time. The front row seat was sacred ground. Sarah had started the tradition when Ella was in preschool. First performance, first row, center seat. She'd arrived 30 minutes early to claim it brought her camera, recorded everything. After each show, they'd go out for ice cream, just the three of them, and Ella would replay every moment while Sarah beamed with pride. When Sarah got sick, she'd made Ethan promise to continue it. Don't miss the shows, she'd said. I don't care if you have to leave work early or skip a meeting or tell your boss to shove it. You be in that front row. That's where she'll look first. That's where she needs to see you. He'd kept the promise. Every performance, every concert, every award ceremony. Front row. Sometimes he was the only dad there. Sometimes other parents gave him looks, wondering why a construction worker was sitting among the stay at home mothers. He didn't care. He'd made a promise. Daddy, Ella's voice brought him back to the present. Yeah, baby. What if I mess up? You won't. But what if I do? Ethan put the car in park and turned to face her. Then you keep going. You finish the song, and I'll still clap the loudest. Promise. Promise. She unbuckled herself and leaned forward for a hug. Ethan held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, the strawberry scent that reminded him she was still so small, still his baby, even though she was growing up too fast. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything. She pulled back, grabbed her backpack, and opened the door. See you tonight. Front row, he called after her. She turned and grinned. Front row. He watched her run toward the school entrance backpack, bouncing braid already starting to come loose. Other kids waved at her. She waved back. She had friends, thank God. Good kids who didn't care that her lunch was packed instead of bought, that her clothes came from Target instead of wherever rich kids got their clothes. Ethan waited until she disappeared inside, then pulled back into traffic. 7:23. He had 52 minutes to get to the construction site. Plenty of time. The day stretched ahead of him. 8 hours of physical labor, lunch break, more labor, then the race home to pick up Ella and get her ready for the show. The corporate dinner wasn't supposed to complicate things. It was just a schmooze fest, an hour of shaking hands with executives who wouldn't remember his name tomorrow. His supervisor had mentioned it last week, said the big bosses wanted full attendance to show unity or team spirit or whatever corporate phrase they were using this quarter. Just show your face, Mike had said. Have a drink, eat some free food, then you can slip out. Ethan had checked the timing. Dinner started at 6. He could arrive at 6:15, stay until 7 leave, with plenty of time to get to Ella's school by 7:20. Front row by 7:30. Perfect. The plan was solid. He'd done the math, checked it twice, built in buffer time for traffic, accounted for every variable he could think of. What he hadn't accounted for was Victoria Lane stumbling at the bar, her glass never empty, her colleagues looking away. What he hadn't accounted for was the choice he'd have to make between keeping his promise to his daughter and helping a stranger who needed it. What he hadn't accounted for was Sarah's voice in his head. Teach Ella to help people, even when it's hard. especially when it's hard. But that was still 11 hours away. For now, Ethan had a job to get to and a promise to keep. The front row seat was waiting. It wouldn't stay empty. He'd made sure of that. Or so he thought. The construction site was a skeleton of a building that would someday be luxury condos. 40 stories of steel and concrete rising out of the Chicago skyline, like a monument to money that people like Ethan would never have. He'd been on this project for 8 months, watching it grow from foundation to framing to the current phase where they were installing windows on the lower floors. Ethan clocked in at 7:14, 1 minute to spare. Mike was already there, clipboard in hand, looking like a man who'd had too much coffee and not enough sleep. Morning, Cole. Morning. You coming to the dinner tonight? Ethan adjusted his hard hat, planning to show my face for an hour. Boss wants full attendance. Big clients will be there. I've got my daughter's talent show at 7:30. Mike's expression shifted something between sympathy and frustration. Look, I get it. But you know how it is? FaceTime matters. These clients, they like seeing the full crew. Makes them feel like their money's going to a tight team. I'll be there from 6:15 to 7. That's an hour. Cole, I promised my kid I'd be at her show. Front row. I don't break promises to my kid. Mike sighed, making a note on his clipboard. Just try to stay as long as you can. All right? Shake some hands. Look engaged. I'll do my best. The morning passed in a rhythm Ethan knew by heart. Hauling materials, checking measurements, working alongside Danny and Rodriguez, two guys who'd been on the crew longer than Ethan and never let him forget it. They were good workers, decent guys, but they lived in a different world. Danny had a wife who worked part time. Rodriguez's mother watched his kids for free. They didn't understand the constant calculations Ethan lived with. At noon, the crew broke for lunch. Danny and Rodriguez headed to the taco truck that parked across the street. $12 plates with enough food to keep you full until dinner. Ethan pulled out his packed lunch turkey sandwich on cheap bread apple water bottle he'd refilled from home. Not eating real food today, Cole, Danny called over. This is real food. You know what I mean. Ethan did know. He just couldn't afford to care. Every dollar saved on lunch was a dollar toward rent or electricity or the stack of medical bills that never seemed to get smaller, no matter how many payments he made. Rodriguez sat down next to him, his plate steaming and fragrant. How's the kid? Good. She's got a talent show tonight. Yeah. What's she doing? Singing something? I don't know the song, but she's been practicing for weeks. You going? Wouldn't miss it. Good man. Rodriguez took a bite of his taco. My mom always said, you miss the school stuff, you miss the childhood. It goes fast. It does. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Ethan's phone buzzed. A notification from his bank electric bill payment processed. $147. Checking account balance $140. Rent was due in 5 days. He'd get paid Friday, but even then, the numbers wouldn't quite add up. They never did. His phone buzzed again. A text from Angela, the neighbor who watched Ella after school. Still good to take Ella to the show if you're running late? Ethan stared at the message. Angela had offered last week, said she was planning to go anyway since her niece was performing. It was a safety net, a backup plan. But Ethan didn't want a backup plan. He wanted to be there himself, wanted to keep his promise. He typed back, should be fine, but thanks. I'll let you know if things change. The afternoon stretched longer than the morning. By 4 o'clock, Ethan's shoulders ached and his hands were raw despite the gloves. By 4:30, he was counting down the minutes until he could clock out. At 4:45, Mike called him over. Corporate just confirmed the dinner details. 6 o'clock sharp, they want everyone there by 6:15 at the latest. I'll be there. And Cole, try to stay until at least 7:30 if you can. I know you've got the kid thing, but these dinners, they matter for future contracts. Future contracts mean job security. Job security. The words hung in the air like a threat. Ethan had been on this crew for 2 years. Before that, he'd bounced between 3 other jobs in 5 years. Construction was steady work until it wasn't. Contracts ended. Projects finished. Crews got downsized. He needed this job, needed the health insurance that barely covered anything but was better than nothing, needed the steady paycheck even if it was never enough. I'll stay as long as I can, Ethan said. He clocked out at 5, drove straight to Ella's school, and picked her up from the after school program. She bounced into the car, full of energy and nerves. 4 hours until showtime, she announced. 4 hours? Ethan confirmed. You're going to be there, right? Front row, baby, I promise. The words came easily. The promise felt solid. He'd done the math, checked the timing built in cushions. What he hadn't built in was a drunk CEO who couldn't remember her address, and a choice that would change everything. But that was still 90 minutes away. The restaurant was the kind of place Ethan would never choose for himself. Too expensive, too polished, too full of people who wore their wealth like armor. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over tables set with cloth napkins and wine glasses that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget. The air smelled like money and cologne, and the particular brand of confidence that came from never having to check your bank account before ordering. Ethan arrived at 6:17, 2 minutes late by Mike's standards, but early enough that the dinner hadn't officially started. He'd gone home, showered, quickly changed into his one good button-down shirt, the blue one that Sarah had bought him for their anniversary 4 years ago. It still fit barely, though the collar felt tighter than he remembered. He'd paired it with his only pair of khakis that didn't have paint stains. Standing in the entrance, watching executives in suits that cost more than his monthly rent, Ethan felt like an imposter. He didn't belong here. He belonged in steel-toed boots and a hard hat, not pretending to make small talk with people who saw him as interchangeable with any other worker on the crew. Cole. Mike appeared at his elbow, already working on his second beer. You made it. Come on, I'll introduce you to some people. The next 45 minutes were a blur of handshakes and names Ethan wouldn't remember. Vice presidents and project managers and client representatives, all of them networking with the practiced ease of people who did this for a living. Ethan smiled, nodded, said the right things at the right times. He wasn't good at this part of the job, but he could fake it for an hour. At 6:50, he checked his watch. 40 minutes until he needed to leave. Plenty of time. He grabbed a plate of appetizers. Free food was free food, and found a relatively quiet corner where he could eat without having to pretend to be interested in corporate politics. That's when he first noticed Victoria Lane. She was standing near the bar, glass in hand, laughing at something one of the executives had said. Ethan recognized her from the company newsletter. Victoria Lane, CEO of the FinTech division, one of three women in leadership positions at the company. She'd been profiled last month as one of Chicago's top business leaders under 40. The article had called her brilliant, driven, uncompromising. Tonight, she looked unsteady. Ethan watched as she reached for the bar to steady herself as her movements became loose and uncoordinated. Her glass was never empty. Every time she set it down, someone refilled it. The executives around her kept their distance, their conversations flowing around her like water around a stone. They saw what was happening. They just didn't want to deal with it. Ethan looked away. Not his problem. Not his business. He had a daughter to get to and a promise to keep. 6:55. He could leave in 5 minutes and still make it to the school by 7:25. 5 minutes of polite excuses and he'd be gone. Then Victoria dropped her clutch. The contents scattered across the polished floor. Lipstick, keys, phone, credit cards. She bent down too quickly, lost her balance, and nearly fell. Caught herself on the edge of a table. Her phone had gone dark, dead battery. She was patting her pockets, mumbling something about not remembering her address, looking around with the unfocused confusion of someone who'd had too much to drink and not enough sense to stop. Nobody moved. 30 people in this restaurant. Executives, managers, important people with important titles. And not one of them moved to help. Ethan checked his watch again. 6:58. 2 minutes until his planned departure. He could leave right now, walk out the door, drive to Ella's school, claim his front row seat, keep his promise. This wasn't his responsibility. Victoria Lane was a CEO with assistants and drivers and probably a dozen people whose job it was to handle situations like this. She didn't need a construction worker to play hero. But Sarah's voice was in his head, clear as if she were standing next to him. Teach Ella to help people, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ethan closed his eyes, took a breath, made a choice. He pulled out his phone and pulled up Angela's number. His finger hovered over the call button. If he did this, if he helped Victoria Lane instead of leaving right now, he'd miss the show. He'd break his promise. He'd leave an empty seat in the front row where Ella would look for him and find nothing. But if he didn't help, if he walked away while a woman was vulnerable and alone and in danger, what would that teach Ella? He pressed call. Angela, it's Ethan. I need a favor. Angela's voice came through warm and familiar. Sure, hon. What's up? Can you take Ella to her talent show tonight? I'll explain later, but something's come up and I can't make it. Silence on the other end. Then, Ethan, she's been talking about you being in the front row all week. I know. She's going to be devastated. I know that too. His throat was tight. But I don't have a choice. There's someone here who needs help, and there's nobody else who's going to do it. More silence. Angela sighed. All right, I'll pick her up in 15 minutes. But, Ethan, you're going to have to explain this to her yourself. I will. Thank you, Angela. I owe you. You owe Ella, not me. The call ended. Ethan stared at his phone at the time glowing on the screen. 7:02. The show started in 28 minutes. Ella was probably already at the school with the after school program staff, getting into her costume, practicing her song one last time. In her mind, her dad was on his way. In her mind, he was keeping his promise. Ethan crossed the restaurant and approached Victoria. She was still fumbling with her scattered belongings, picking up items with uncoordinated movements. Miss Lane, he kept his voice low, non threatening. Is there someone I can call for you? A friend, family member. She looked up at him with unfocused eyes. I'm fine. Ma'am, I don't think you are. I said I'm fine. She tried to stand, swayed, caught herself on his arm. Who are you? Ethan Cole. I work in operations. I just want to make sure you get home safely. Victoria laughed bitter and sharp. Home? Right. I just moved. Can't remember the new address. Some CEO. Can't even remember where I live. She looked around the restaurant at the people pretending not to watch. My phone's dead. I need to call my driver, but my phone's dead. Let me help you, Ethan said. I'll make sure you get somewhere safe. Why? The question caught him off guard. Because you need help. Nobody helps people for free. What do you want? Nothing, ma'am. I just want to make sure you're okay. He tried the restaurant staff first. The manager listened politely, then explained that they couldn't take liability for intoxicated patrons. He tried asking other executives. They suddenly had urgent phone calls or meetings to get to. He tried Victoria's assistant, but her phone went straight to voicemail. 7:15. The show was starting in 15 minutes. Ethan made another decision. Probably the worst decision of his life, though he didn't know it yet. I'm going to take you to my apartment, he said. You can sleep this off on my couch. I'll stay in my daughter's room. In the morning, when you're sober, you can go home. But right now, you're not safe here alone. Victoria didn't argue. She didn't have the capacity to argue. She just nodded and let him guide her toward the exit. In the parking lot, Ethan called Angela again. Can I do one more thing? Can you video call me with Ella? I need to talk to her before the show starts. Hold on. A moment later, Ella's face appeared on the screen. She was already in her costume, silver stars pinned in her hair. Behind her, Ethan could see the backstage area of the school auditorium. Daddy, where are you? The show's starting soon. His heart shattered. Baby, listen to me. There's a lady here who's really sick. She needs help getting home safe. Ella's smile faded. But the show, I know. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I promised I'd be there, and I'm breaking that promise. But this lady, she's in trouble, and nobody else is helping her. So, is she sick like mommy was? The question destroyed him. Different sick, but she needs help. Ella's face crumpled. She was trying not to cry. 8 years old and already learning that adults don't always keep their promises, that the world doesn't care about front row seats, or children who need their fathers. Mommy always said to help people, Ella whispered. She did, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ella nodded, blinking back tears. Okay, Daddy, help the sick lady. You're going to be amazing tonight. Angela will record everything. I'll watch it tomorrow, I promise. 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 I love you, baby. Love you too. The screen went dark. Ethan sat in his car. Victoria passed out in the passenger seat and let himself break for exactly 30 seconds. Then he wiped his eyes, started the engine, and drove. Victoria got sick twice on the way to his apartment. Both times, Ethan pulled over, handed her water he'd bought at a gas station, waited patiently. She mumbled apologies between retching. He told her it was fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. But what choice did he have? His apartment was dark when they arrived. The windows that usually glowed with Ella's bedroom light were black. Angela had already picked her up. The show was starting right now. Ella was walking onto that stage, scanning the audience for the front row center seat, finding it empty. Ethan helped Victoria inside, guided her to the couch, stepped back immediately. He didn't linger, didn't touch her more than absolutely necessary. Every movement was calculated, conscious of how this could look, how it could be misinterpreted. He filled a glass with water, set it on the coffee table with 2 aspirin, found a clean blanket and draped it over her. She was already asleep, curled on her side. Mascara, smudged, expensive dress, wrinkled and stained. Then Ethan did something that would later become crucial evidence. He wrote a note, clear, detailed, anticipating every question, every fear. You are at my home because you could not get back to yours safely. I slept in my daughter's room. There is water and aspirin on the table. My name is Ethan Cole. I work in operations. He placed the note where she'd see it first thing, plugged in her dead phone, set it next to the note. Then he went to Ella's room, spread a blanket on the floor, and lay down on the carpet next to her bed. The room smelled like her. Strawberry shampoo and the lavender spray she used because she thought it helped her sleep. Her stuffed animals were lined up on her bed. Her nightlight cast stars across the ceiling. Ethan pulled out his phone. Angela had sent the video already. Ella's performance. He stared at the file. Couldn't bring himself to press play. Not yet. Not while the woman in his living room held the power to destroy everything. He set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, at the plastic stars, thinking about the real front row seat he should have been occupying. Thinking about his daughter singing without him there to hear it. Thinking about the choice he'd made and whether Sarah would have been proud or disappointed. Thinking he'd done the right thing. Having no idea how wrong everything was about to go. The sound of the front door opening woke Ethan from a sleep he hadn't realized he'd fallen into. His watch read 11:43. He sat up from Ella's floor, his back aching, and heard Angela's voice in the living room. Should be sleeping by now, but she wanted to come home. Then Ella's voice, smaller than usual. Is Daddy here? Ethan emerged from the bedroom to find his daughter standing in the doorway in her costume glitter, still in her hair from the performance. Angela stood behind her, apologetic but firm. She insisted, Angela said. Wanted to see you tonight. Ella's eyes went immediately to the woman on the couch. Victoria was exactly where Ethan had left her, sleeping under the blanket, one arm dangling toward the floor. Daddy, who is that? Ethan knelt down to Ella's level. Remember the sick lady I told you about? The one I had to help. That's her. Yeah, baby. She needed somewhere safe to rest. Ella studied Victoria with the intense curiosity of a child taking in every detail. The expensive clothes, the smudged makeup, the way she was curled up like she was trying to make herself smaller. She looks sad, Ella observed, even when she's sleeping. The comment surprised Ethan. What do you mean? Her face is all scrunched, like when you're worried about bills. Angela made a soft sound, somewhere between amusement and sympathy. Ethan realized with a sinking feeling that Ella had been paying more attention than he'd thought. That she noticed when he sat at the kitchen table late at night, calculator out, trying to make numbers add up that never would. She's just tired, Ethan said. Come on, let's get you ready for bed. Angela helped Ella change out of her costume while Ethan put it carefully in the closet. The silver stars fell out of her hair onto the carpet. He picked them up one by one, these cheap plastic decorations that had made his daughter feel special for one night. How was the performance? He asked. Ella shrugged. Good, I guess. Just good. I remembered all the words. That's great, baby. But you weren't there to hear them. The words were matter of fact, not accusatory. Somehow, that made them worse. Ella wasn't angry. She was just stating reality. Her dad had promised to be in the front row, and he wasn't. Simple as that. I know, Ethan said, and I'm so sorry. It's okay. You were helping someone. That doesn't make it okay. Ella looked at him with those eyes that saw too much. Mommy would understand. Maybe, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Did it hurt you to miss it? Yes, baby. It hurt a lot. Good, Ella said, then immediately looked guilty. I mean, I don't want you to hurt, but I'm glad you're sad about missing it. That means it mattered. Ethan pulled her into a hug, this child who was too wise for her age, who'd learned too young that life was complicated and promises sometimes got broken, and being good didn't always mean things worked out the way you wanted. Angela left after saying goodnight. Ethan tucked Ella into bed, checked that her nightlight was on, made sure her water cup was full. Daddy. Ella's voice stopped him at the door. Yeah. Is the sick lady going to be okay? Yeah. She just needs to rest. Will she remember you helped her? The question struck him as oddly specific. I hope so. Why? Because I want her to know. That you missed my show to help her. That it was important to you. I think she'll understand. Good. Ella rolled over, tucking her stuffed elephant under her chin. Night, Daddy. Night, baby. I love you. Love you too. Ethan stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching his daughter's breathing slow as she drifted toward sleep. In the living room, Victoria remained unconscious. In his pocket, his phone held the video of the performance he'd missed. He went back to Ella's floor, spread his blanket out again, and lay down. The note was on Victoria's coffee table. Her phone was charging. Everything was documented. Everything was appropriate. He'd maintained distance. He had a witness in the form of his own child. It should have been enough. But as Ethan lay there in the dark, listening to Ella breathe in the bed above him, and Victoria breathe in the room beyond, he had a terrible premonition that nothing would be enough. That he'd just made a choice that would unravel everything. That doing the right thing was about to cost him more than a front row seat. His phone buzzed. The video from Angela. He pulled it up, let his thumb hover over the play button. Couldn't do it. Not yet. Couldn't watch his daughter look for him in a crowd and not find him. Couldn't watch her sing alone while he'd been helping a stranger who'd probably never even remember his name. Ethan set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, Victoria would wake up. Tomorrow, she'd read the note. Tomorrow, everything would make sense, and she'd thank him and leave, and life would go back to normal. Tomorrow. He almost believed it. Victoria Lane opened her eyes to a ceiling she didn't recognize. The panic was immediate and visceral. Wrong ceiling, wrong bed, wrong clothes. She sat up too fast, her head pounding, stomach churning. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt that smelled like laundry detergent and something else, something unfamiliar. Not her shirt, not her room, not her anything. The last thing she remembered clearly was the restaurant, the corporate dinner. She'd been stressed about the board meeting next week, had allowed herself a glass of wine to take the edge off. Then another. Then nothing. A black hole where the rest of the night should have been. Victoria's hands shook as she looked around the room. Small apartment, children's drawings on the walls, a family photo on the bookshelf showing a man, a woman, and a little girl. The woman looked happy. The man looked young. The photo looked old. On the coffee table in front of her, a glass of water, 2 aspirin, and a note. She grabbed the note with trembling fingers. You are at my home because you could not get back to yours safely. I slept in my daughter's room. There is water and aspirin on the table. My name is Ethan Cole. I work in operations. Victoria read it 3 times. The handwriting was neat masculine, the message clear and direct. He'd anticipated her fear. Left an explanation before she even woke up. That was either very thoughtful or very calculated, and she didn't know which possibility frightened her more. Her phone was on the table next to the note, plugged into a charger. Someone had charged it. The battery showed full. In her panicked state, that didn't feel like kindness. That felt like someone had accessed her phone, could have seen her emails, her messages, her entire life laid bare. She grabbed the phone and dialed Rachel. Rachel Chen had been Victoria's closest friend since law school. They'd studied together, supported each other through career challenges and personal disasters. Rachel had been there through Victoria's divorce, through the hostile takeover attempt at work, through every crisis that required someone who could think 3 steps ahead and tell hard truths. Tori, Rachel's voice was thick with sleep. It's 6 in the morning. I woke up at some man's apartment. Silence. Then Rachel's voice sharpened, all traces of sleep gone. Where are you? Are you safe? Do you know his name? There's a note. It says his name is Ethan Cole. He works at my company, in operations. A subordinate. Christ. Have you seen him yet? No. I just woke up. Don't say anything to him. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Get out of there and call me back. Rachel. Tori, listen to me. You don't remember what happened. Until we know for certain, we protect you first. Do you understand? Victoria's hands were shaking harder now. I don't even know what I'm protecting myself from. That's exactly the point. You don't know. And until we do know, we document everything. Take photos of the room, note the time. If this goes sideways, I want a paper trail showing you reported it immediately. Reported what I don't even. She heard movement in the hallway. Footsteps. A door opening. He's coming, Victoria whispered. Don't hang up. But Victoria did hang up. Because it wasn't Ethan Cole appearing in the hallway. It was a little girl. 8 years old, maybe. Brown hair in a messy braid. Elephant pajamas, 2 sizes too small. She stopped when she saw Victoria, her expression curious rather than fearful. Are you feeling better? The girl asked. Victoria's brain stuttered. I. What? Daddy said you were sick. He helped you. Daddy's good at helping. Mommy taught him. The simplicity of it, the innocent trust in this child's voice, cut through Victoria's panic like a knife. This wasn't the scene she'd been bracing for. This wasn't danger. This was a little girl checking on someone she thought was sick. Behind the girl, Ethan Cole appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded tank top and sweatpants. He looked tired, not threatening, just exhausted. Ella, go brush your teeth, please. The girl obeyed without argument, disappearing down the hall. Ethan stayed in the doorway, maintaining distance. Miss Lane, he said quietly, I know this looks bad. I know you're scared. But I need you to understand that nothing happened last night. You were in no condition to get home safely. I made a judgment call. That's all. Victoria looked around the room again, seeing it differently now. The children's artwork, the family photos, the small backpack with a unicorn patch leaned against the wall, the folded blanket on the floor near the couch where she'd slept. He'd slept in his daughter's room, just like the note said. Everything pointed to exactly what he was claiming. But Rachel's voice was in her head. You don't know. Protect yourself first. I need to leave, Victoria said. I'll call you a cab. She gathered her things, purse, phone, shoes she didn't remember taking off. Ethan kept his distance, not approaching, not explaining further, just letting her leave. The cab arrived within minutes. Victoria walked toward it on shaking legs, then paused, looked back at the apartment window. The little girl's face was there, watching her go. Ella waved. Victoria waved back, automatic and hollow. Then she got in the cab and left. Something cold settled in her stomach. Not because of what might have happened in that apartment, but because of what she was about to do next. Victoria Lane sat in her corner office 3 hours later, staring at her computer screen. The cursor blinked in an empty email field. The recipient line read Legal and Human Resources. She changed clothes, showered, put on her armor, in the form of a tailored suit and perfect makeup. Looking at her now, nobody would guess she'd woken up in a stranger's apartment with no memory of how she got there. That was the point. CEOs didn't show weakness. CEOs controlled narratives. Rachel had called twice more since Victoria left Ethan's apartment. Each call reinforced the same message: document everything, report it immediately, control the story before someone else does. But nothing happened, Victoria had said. The note, the daughter, everything pointed to him, just helping me. You don't know that for certain. You have no memory, Tori. No memory means no certainty. And if this man decides to get ahead of you, to tell people his version before you establish yours, you'll be playing defense. CEOs don't play defense. Victoria knew it. She'd built her career on that principle: strike first, control the frame. Never let anyone else define your story. It had served her well through a divorce, through board challenges, through competitors who tried to undermine her authority. The moment you let someone else control the narrative was the moment you lost. But something kept her fingers frozen above the keyboard. She thought about the note Ethan had left, anticipating her fear, addressing it before she even woke. She thought about his daughter, asking if she felt better. She thought about the blanket folded on the floor, physical evidence that he'd slept exactly where he said he had. Her phone buzzed. Rachel again. Have you filed the report yet? I'm about to. Good. The longer you wait, the worse it looks, like you're covering something up. I'm not covering anything up. I'm just. Just what? Just trying to figure out if I'm doing the right thing. Rachel's voice softened slightly. Tori, I know this is hard, but you can't be certain about what happened because you don't remember. And if even 1% of your gut is telling you something's wrong, you owe it to yourself to protect that 1%. That's not accusation. That's precaution. Precaution. The word felt clinical, safe. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a report, just a record, just in case. Victoria began typing. She chose her words with the precision of someone who'd spent 15 years in corporate leadership. She didn't claim assault. She didn't use language that couldn't be walked back. She simply stated facts. I attended a company event. I consumed alcohol. I woke at the residence of an employee with no memory of the previous night. I am filing this report to ensure proper documentation and to request a review of company protocols regarding employee conduct at corporate functions. The language was HR approved, neutral, professional. But she knew what it would trigger, knew the machine it would set in motion. An employee report involving a female executive and a male subordinate would launch an immediate investigation. Ethan Cole would be questioned, likely suspended pending review. His life would be put under a microscope. Her finger hovered over the send button. For one moment, she thought about Ethan standing in his kitchen, calm and unhurried, offering her coffee like it was any other morning. She thought about the little girl, asking if she felt better. She thought about the handwritten note, anticipating her fear before she even opened her eyes. Then she thought about the board meeting next week, the investors watching her every move, the whispers that would follow if anyone found out she'd been drunk at a company event and ended up at a subordinate's home. Her career, built brick by brick over 15 years, could crumble on rumors alone. Victoria pressed send. The email disappeared from her screen. Somewhere in the building, it was landing in inboxes. Legal would see it. HR would see it. The machinery of corporate protocol was already grinding into motion. Victoria closed her laptop, put her head in her hands, whispered to the empty office, "I'm sorry." But sorry didn't unsend emails. Sorry didn't stop investigations. Sorry didn't protect Ethan Cole from what was about to happen to him. By the time Ethan dropped Ella off at school that morning, the email had reached 3 department heads. By the time he walked into his office building, security was waiting to escort him to human resources. He didn't know that his badge had been flagged. He didn't know that his access to the company server had been suspended. He didn't know that the woman he tried to help had just filed a report using the words inappropriate conduct and potential policy violation in the same paragraph. He found out when Mason Reed from HR handed him a printed document and asked him to read it carefully. "You're being placed on administrative leave, pending investigation," Mason said. "This is standard procedure. It's not a determination of guilt." Ethan read the document twice. His face didn't change. His hands didn't shake. But something inside him went very still. "I need to make arrangements for my daughter," he said. "You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Security will escort you out." Ethan nodded once, then asked the question he already knew the answer to. "Am I allowed to know who filed this report?" Mason hesitated. Given the nature of the allegation, the complainant's identity is protected under company policy. But Ethan didn't need a name. There was only one person it could be. He walked back to his desk under the watchful eyes of a security guard. His co-workers glanced at him, then quickly looked away. The rumor mill had already started grinding. By lunch, everyone would have their own theory about what Ethan Cole had done to get escorted out of the building. The truth wouldn't matter. It never did. Ethan sat in his car in the school parking lot, the cardboard box of his belongings on the passenger seat. Inside, a photo of Ella at her 5th birthday party, a coffee mug she'd painted for him at summer camp, a small cactus that had somehow survived 3 years on his desk. The collected evidence of 2 years at this job packed into a box that weighed almost nothing. His phone showed 11:47. Ella was in class, learning math or science or whatever third graders learned on Thursday mornings. She had no idea that her father had just been escorted out of his building like a criminal, that the whispers had already started, that by the time he picked her up this afternoon, her world would be different. He needed to tell her, needed to explain why he'd be home every day now, why money would be even tighter, why the other parents at school might start looking at him differently. But how do you explain to an 8-year-old that doing the right thing sometimes gets you punished? Ethan started the car and drove to the school. He walked into the main office where the secretary looked up with a practiced smile. "I need to pick up Ella Cole early," he said. "Family matter." The secretary's smile flickered. Is everything all right, Mr. Cole? Everything's fine. Just need her home today. 10 minutes later, Ella emerged from her classroom, confused but not worried. She trusted that if Daddy was picking her up early, there was a good reason. Why am I leaving? She asked as they walked to the car. I'll explain when we get home. Am I in trouble? No, baby. You're not in trouble. In the car, Ella buckled herself in and waited. She'd learned to read her father's moods, to know when to push for answers and when to wait. This was a waiting moment. Ethan pulled into their apartment complex and parked, turned off the engine, sat in silence for a moment, gathering words that wouldn't come. Daddy, Ella's voice was small. What's wrong? He turned to face her. Remember the lady from last night? The one who was sick? The one you helped? Yeah. Well, she told her work that she was confused about what happened. And now, my work needs to make sure I didn't do anything wrong. Ella's eyes went wide. But you didn't. You just helped her. I know, baby. And they'll figure that out. But for right now, I have to stay home from work while they check everything. For how long? The question he'd been dreading. I don't know. Ella processed this, her face serious. Are we going to be okay? 8 years old. She shouldn't have to ask that question. Shouldn't have to worry about whether her family would survive. But she'd learned young that security was fragile, that everything could change in a moment. We're always okay as long as we have each other, Ethan said. Right? Ella nodded, but he could see the worry in her eyes. She wasn't entirely convinced. Inside the apartment, Ella set her backpack down carefully. Can we watch my performance now? Ethan's heart sank. He still hadn't watched the video, couldn't bring himself to see his daughter looking for him in a crowd where he wasn't. Are you sure you want to? I want you to see it, Daddy. I worked really hard. They sat on the couch together. Ethan pulled up the video on his phone, hit play. The recording was shaky at first, Angela finding her position in the audience. Then the stage came into focus, and Ella walked out in her costume silver stars, catching the light. Ethan watched his daughter scan the audience, watched her look for the front row, watched her face fall just slightly when she didn't find him there. But then something remarkable happened. Ella squared her shoulders, took a breath, and sang anyway, every word, every note. Her voice was sweet and clear, occasionally off key in the way that 8-year-olds are, but confident. She'd practiced for weeks, and it showed. She remembered the choreography, hit her cues, even smiled at the other kids during the group chorus. The video ended. Ethan's eyes were wet. Did I do good? Ella asked. Baby, you did amazing. Better than if you were there? The question caught him off guard. What? Angela said you had to help someone. So maybe I did better because I had to be brave by myself. Ethan pulled her close. You are the bravest person I know. Ella leaned against him. You're pretty brave too, Daddy. You helped someone, even though it was hard. They watched the video again and again. Each time Ethan saw something new. The way Ella's hands trembled slightly before she started singing. The way she glanced at the front row between verses, still hoping he might magically appear. The way she finished strong despite everything taking her bow with a smile that looked almost real. His daughter. Brave and bright and already learning that the world didn't always reward doing the right thing. I'm sorry I wasn't there, Ethan said again. I know, Daddy. You already said sorry. I know. But I need you to understand how sorry I am. Ella pulled back to look at him. Are you going to keep saying sorry? Because that won't change anything. You weren't there. Now you are. That's what matters. 8 years old. Philosopher. That afternoon, they made lunch together. Grilled cheese with the cheap bread and cheese slices. Ella chatted about school, about her friend Emma, who'd invited her to a birthday party next week, about the book she was reading about dolphins. Normal conversation. Normal afternoon. Except Ethan's phone kept buzzing with texts from coworkers. Most of them were checking if he was okay. A few were more pointed. What happened? Are you all right? Call me. He didn't respond. Didn't have the energy to explain something he barely understood himself. At 3 o'clock, his phone rang. The school. Ethan's stomach dropped. Mr. Cole. This is Principal Matthews. I wanted to give you a heads up about something. What happened? Nothing happened exactly, but we've had a few parents call asking about a situation involving you. I assured them that as far as the school is concerned, you're a valued member of our community and there are no issues. But I thought you should know. People are talking. Ethan closed his eyes. I understand. Thank you for letting me know. Is there anything you want to tell me? Anything I should be aware of? Just that I'm being investigated by my employer for something I didn't do. And apparently, the rumors are spreading faster than the truth. I'm sorry to hear that. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. The call ended. Ethan set his phone down and looked at Ella, who was reading on the couch, oblivious to the conversation. How long before the rumors reached her? Before the other kids heard what their parents were saying? Before Ella's friends started avoiding her because of whispers about her father? He thought about the front row seat he'd given up to help Victoria Lane. Thought about the choice that had seemed so clear at the time. Help someone in need. Do the right thing. Teach Ella through actions, not just words. Now that choice was metastasizing into something he couldn't control. A report he'd never seen, allegations he couldn't defend against consequences that would ripple out and touch his daughter. Ella looked up from her book. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, baby. Just tired. You look sad. I'm not sad. I'm just thinking. About the sick lady. Yeah. Do you wish you hadn't helped her? The question stopped him cold. Did he? If he'd known this would happen, would he have made a different choice? No, he said finally. I don't wish that. Good, because Mommy always said helping people is important, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything Ethan thought but didn't say, even when it destroys your life. Even then. Monday morning, Ethan woke at 5:47 out of habit. Reached for his phone to silence an alarm he no longer needed to set. No work to get to. No pre-shift meeting to attend. Just empty hours stretching ahead with no paycheck at the end of them. He made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, pulling up his bank account. The numbers stared back at him, merciless and clear. Checking account $287.14 Savings account $0. Rent due in 18 days. Amount due $850. Next paycheck, none. Suspended employees didn't get paid. Unemployment benefits filed for them Friday, 3 to 4 weeks before the first payment. The math didn't work. Simple arithmetic. He needed $850 in 18 days and had $287 with no income. Ethan opened a spreadsheet and started making lists. Essential. Rent, $850. Or eviction, electricity, $147. Due Friday, groceries, $200 per month. Minimum, Ella's after school program, $180 per week. Can't skip health insurance, $89. Cobra, if he loses job. Car insurance, $127. Due in 12 days. Gas, $80 per month. Estimate. Already overdue. Medical bills. Sarah, $3,400 remaining minimum payment. $50 per month. Credit card, $2,100 balance, minimum payment, $65 per month. Total needed immediately, $1,000. Total available, $287. Deficit, $713. He stared at the numbers, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. Cut groceries to $100. They were already eating pasta 3 nights a week. Cancel Ella's after-school program. Then, who would watch her while he was doing what he wasn't working? He'd be home. That was one expense he could cut. Ethan picked up his phone and called the program director. I need to cancel Ella's spot for the foreseeable future. Oh no, is everything all right? Just some temporary financial issues. I'll re-enroll when things stabilize. The spot won't be held. We have a waiting list. I understand. $180 saved per week. It helped, but not enough. By Tuesday, Ethan was applying for jobs. Every opening he could find. Construction, warehouse, retail, fast food, anything with a paycheck. Every application had the same question: have you ever been subject to a workplace investigation or disciplinary action? Box 1, yes and never get hired. Box 2, no, and get fired for lying if they find out. He checked no on all of them, hated himself for it, sent the applications anyway. 0 responses. By Wednesday. Thursday morning, he checked the account balance. $134.87. The electric bill autopay had gone through. He'd forgotten to cancel it, and now $147 was gone, leaving him with $134 for the rest of the month. Ella needed new shoes. Her toes were scrunched in the old ones, the soles wearing through. Shoes cost at least $30 for the cheap kind. That left $104 for groceries until unemployment kicked in. If it kicked in. If his claim was approved. Ethan pulled out the small velvet box from his bedroom drawer. Sarah's jewelry, her wedding ring, her grandmother's necklace, earrings he'd bought her for their 5th anniversary, pieces she'd loved, pieces that held memories. Ella found him holding the box. That's Mommy's, she said. I know. What are you doing with it? He couldn't lie to her, wouldn't lie to her. I need to sell some of it to pay bills. Ella's face crumpled. But it's mommy's. I know, baby. She'd want us to keep it. She'd want us to keep the lights on more. Silence. Ella's eyes filled with tears. Can I keep one thing? Please. You can keep anything you want. Ella looked through the box, carefully touching each piece like it might break. She chose a simple silver bracelet, delicate chain, small heart charm. Sarah had worn it every day. This one, because it smells like her. It didn't. Not anymore. 3 years had erased whatever scent might have clung to the metal. But Ethan didn't correct her. That one's yours forever, he said. Promise, promise. He took the rest to a pawn shop on the south side. The man behind the counter barely looked at the pieces, just weighed them and calculated. 340 for everything. Ethan's throat tightened. Sarah's ring alone had cost him $1,200  8 years ago. The necklace was an antique worth at least $500. But he wasn't in a position to negotiate. Deal. $340 in cash. He paid the electric bill in person at the utility office, $147. Bought groceries at the discount store, $80. Paid Ella's school for the field trip next week, $25. Bought her new shoes from the clearance rack, $22. Remaining $66 for 2 more weeks. The math still didn't work. Friday evening, Ethan made dinner. Pasta again. Ella didn't complain, but he saw her looking at the plain noodles with barely disguised disappointment. Can we have the sauce with meat in it? She asked. The sauce with meat cost $4.99. The plain sauce cost $2.49. Not tonight, baby. Maybe next week. Okay. She ate without commenting further. Ethan watched her twirl noodles on her fork, her face carefully neutral. 8 years old and already learning to hide disappointment. Learning that maybe next week usually meant no. After dinner, Ella helped him with dishes. Daddy? Yeah. Are we poor? The question hit like a physical blow. Why do you ask that? Because we're eating pasta again. And you sold mommy's jewelry. And you keep saying we can't afford things. Ethan dried his hands and knelt down to her level. We're not poor, baby. We're just being careful with money right now. Because you're not working, yeah. Because of the sick lady, yeah. Ella's face scrunched up. Maybe she could give you money, since you helped her. The innocence of it destroyed him. It doesn't work like that, sweetheart. Why not? Because sometimes doing the right thing costs you something, and you don't get paid back. That doesn't seem fair. No, baby. It's not fair. Ella went quiet, processing. Then, but you do it again, right? Even knowing what would happen, would he? If he could go back to that restaurant, knowing everything that would follow, would he still help Victoria Lane? Yeah, Ethan said. I would. Good. Because if you said no, I'd be sad. Not because we're eating pasta, but because it would mean you're not the daddy I think you are. She hugged him and went to her room to read. Ethan stood in the kitchen alone with the dishes and the crushing weight of financial math that wouldn't balance. He pulled out his phone and looked at job applications. all pending, all silent. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Mason Reed from HR. We'd like you to come in for a follow up interview. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Please confirm. Ethan stared at the message. A follow up interview meant the investigation was still ongoing, meant they hadn't found evidence to clear him yet, meant more time in limbo, more time without income, more pasta dinners, and sold jewelry and 8-year-olds asking if they were poor. He typed back, confirmed, set his phone down, looked at the calendar on the wall. 14 days until rent was due. $66 to last until then. And a daughter who still believed her father was a good man, even when the world was determined to prove otherwise. The first sign came on Monday. Ethan was picking Ella up from school. No after school program anymore. He was there at 3 o'clock sharp every day when he noticed her walking alone to the car. Usually, Emma or one of the other girls walked with her. Today, she was by herself. Where's Emma? He asked as she climbed into the back seat. She had to go home quick. Something in her voice wasn't right. Too casual, too practiced. Everything okay at school? Fine. That word. Fine. The universal word kids used when nothing was fine. At home, Ella went straight to her room. Didn't ask for a snack. Didn't talk about her day. Just closed her door quietly and stayed there. Ethan gave her 30 minutes, then knocked. Can I come in? No answer. He opened the door anyway. Ella was sitting on her bed, not reading, not playing, just staring at the wall. What's wrong, baby? Nothing. Ella. She didn't look at him. Marcus said you're a bad guy. Ethan's stomach dropped. He sat down beside her. When did he say that? At recess. He said his mom said you did something bad to a lady. Every muscle in Ethan's body tensed. Marcus, 8 years old, repeating things he'd heard his mother say. Turning playground time into a courtroom where an accused man couldn't defend himself. What did you say back? I said he was lying. And then he said his mom doesn't lie. And then Emma and Jackson said they couldn't play with me anymore. Tears now. Ella's face crumpled and she started crying, not the loud crying of small hurts, but the quiet, hopeless crying of bigger ones. They said, their parents said they can't be my friend because of you. Ethan pulled her into his arms. She clung to him, sobbing into his shirt, her small body shaking. I'm so sorry, baby. Why did you help that lady if it was going to make everyone hate us? The question cut deeper than anything else, because he'd asked himself the same thing at 3 in the morning when he couldn't sleep, standing in the pawn shop selling Sarah's jewelry, sitting at the kitchen table trying to make math work. That wouldn't. Because she needed help, he said. And we don't stop helping people just because it's hard. But now I have no friends. You have friends, real friends, the ones who stick around. But what if nobody sticks around? Ethan had no answer because he was wondering the same thing. How long before everyone decided he was guilty despite zero evidence? How long before whispers became accepted? Truth. The next day, Ella's teacher called. Mr. Cole, we need to talk about Ella. They met after school. Mrs. Henderson was in her 50s, kind but firm, the type of teacher who'd seen everything and didn't tolerate nonsense. Ella's been withdrawn lately, she said. Not participating in class, eating lunch alone. I'm concerned. We're going through a difficult time, Ethan said carefully. I heard several parents have expressed concerns. Concerns about what? Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable. About the situation. Your situation. My situation is being investigated by my employer. There are no charges. No police involvement. Just company protocol. I understand. But parents are gossiping, and my daughter is paying the price. Mrs. Henderson sighed. I'm recommending Ella speak with the school counselor. She's being bullied, Mr. Cole, and she needs support. She has support. She has me. I know, but sometimes kids need additional. I'll handle it. He stood to leave. Mrs. Henderson called after him. Mr. Cole? Yeah. For what it's worth, Ella talks about you constantly. How you braid her hair every morning, pack her lunch, help with homework. She adores you. The praise felt hollow. Then, why doesn't that matter? Mrs. Henderson had no answer. That evening, Ella came home with a note from Emma's mother. I'm sorry, but Emma won't be able to attend play dates with Ella until your current situation is resolved. I'm sure you understand. Ethan crumpled the note, wanted to call Emma's mother and explain. Wanted to show her the evidence he'd gathered, the note he'd left for Victoria, the video call with Ella, the GPS records, showing exactly where he'd driven that night. But what was the point? People had already decided. Evidence didn't matter when the narrative was already written. Wednesday afternoon, Ethan was waiting in the pickup line when another parent approached his car. Brad, something father of one of Ella's classmates. Cole, right? Yeah. Look, I don't know what happened with you and that woman, and frankly, it's none of my business. But I need you to understand that my wife is uncomfortable with our daughter being around Ella right now. Nothing happened. I helped a colleague get home safely. That's all. I'm sure that's your version. But until this gets sorted out, we'd appreciate it if Ella kept her distance from Sophie. Brad walked away before Ethan could respond. That night, Ella came into the kitchen while Ethan was making dinner. She climbed onto a chair and sat quietly watching him. Daddy? Yeah, baby. Am I going to have to change schools? Ethan's hands stilled on the cutting board. What? No. Why would you think that? Because nobody wants to play with me anymore. Nobody wants to be my friend. He set down the knife and pulled her into his lap. This is going to blow over, sweetheart. People will forget. When? Soon. How soon? I don't know. Ella leaned her head against his chest. I wish Mommy was here. She'd know what to do. Yeah, baby. Me too. They sat like that for a long time, Ethan holding his daughter while dinner got cold on the counter, while the world outside their small apartment continued to judge them based on rumors and fear. Later, after Ella was in bed, Ethan sat in the hallway outside her door and listened to her cry. Quiet sobs she thought he couldn't hear. 8 years old and learning that innocence doesn't protect you. That having a good father isn't enough when people have already decided who you are. He couldn't go in, couldn't fix it, couldn't call Marcus's mother or Emma's mother or Brad and make them understand. Couldn't undo the choice he'd made to help Victoria Lane. All he could do was sit in the hallway and listen to his daughter cry herself to sleep. This was the real cost, not the job, not the money, not his reputation. This, his daughter's tears, because he'd done what Sarah taught him to do, because he tried to be a good man. The breaking point came on Thursday. Ethan was making lunch when Ella came home from school and went straight to her room without speaking. The silence was different today, heavier. He gave her 10 minutes, then knocked on her door. Ella, can I come in? No answer. He entered anyway. She was on her bed, face buried in her pillow, backpack thrown in the corner. What happened? Ella sat up. Her eyes were red, face streaked with tears. Are you going to jail, Daddy? The words hit him like a physical assault. What? Sophia said her dad said you might go to jail for what you did to that lady. Ethan's vision tunneled. He sat down on the bed, his legs suddenly unable to hold him. No, baby, I'm not going to jail. Who told you that? I already said. Sophia, at recess. She said her dad is a lawyer and he knows about these things. Ella, listen to me. He took her hands. People don't go to jail unless they commit crimes. I didn't commit any crimes. Then why does everyone think you did? Because people are scared. And when people are scared, they believe things that aren't true. Ella pulled her hands back. I'm scared too. Of what? That you're going to leave. Like mommy left. The statement shattered something inside him. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight he was afraid he might hurt her. Baby, no. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, I'm not going to jail. This is just a work problem. It'll get sorted out. But mommy promised she'd get better, and she didn't. There it was, the trauma beneath everything else. The fear that promises meant nothing because her mother had promised to beat cancer and died anyway. You're right, Ethan said carefully. Mommy thought she'd get better. She wanted to. But sometimes our bodies don't cooperate. Sometimes things happen that are outside our control. So promises don't matter. Some promises can be broken by things we can't control, like sickness. But this promise, me not going to jail, that's different. I can control that because I didn't do anything wrong. Ella wiped her nose on her sleeve. Then why is everyone so mean? Because sometimes the world is unfair, and we have to be brave until it gets fair again. How long will that take? I don't know, baby. I'm tired of being brave, Daddy. Ethan kissed the top of her head. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. She curled against him, and they sat in silence. Father and daughter, both exhausted, both trying to believe that things would get better. Daddy, yeah, if you do have to go to jail, I'm not. But if you do, what happens to me? The question destroyed him. That's not going to happen. But what if it does? Who would take care of me? Ethan thought about his parents, both dead before Ella was born. Sarah's parents, who lived in Florida and were too old to handle an 8-year-old. His sister in California, who he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Angela would take care of you, he said. She loves you. She'd make sure you were safe. But she's not you. No, she's not. And she's not mommy. No. Ella started crying again harder this time. I don't want you to go to jail. I don't want to live with Angela. I want you. Just you. That's all I want. That's all I want too, baby. And that's what you're going to have. I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. But even as he said it, Ethan wondered if it was a promise he could keep. He'd done everything right that night, maintained distance, left a note, slept in Ella's room with her as a witness, documented everything, and none of it mattered. Because Victoria Lane had filed a report and the system didn't care about evidence as much as it cared about liability. The system didn't protect innocent people. It protected companies from lawsuits and executives from embarrassment. That night, after Ella finally fell asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. He'd been gathering evidence since the suspension started. GPS records from his phone showing the exact route he'd driven. The call log showing when he'd contacted Angela. The text messages documenting his plans. The gas station receipt from when he'd bought water for Victoria. Everything was there. Everything proved his version of events was true. But who was going to look at it? HR had already made up their minds. Victoria had filed a report, and the investigation was just theater, a performance of due process, while they figured out the least legally risky way to handle the situation. Ethan pulled up the video of Ella's performance again, watched her scan the audience, watched her face fall when she didn't find him, watched her sing anyway, brave and alone. He'd made a choice that night: help Victoria or keep his promise to Ella. He'd chosen Victoria because it was the right thing to do, and it had cost him everything: his job, his savings, his daughter's friends, his reputation, his sense of security, all gone because he tried to be a good man. Sarah's voice in his head: teach Ella to help people, even when it's hard. Well, he'd taught her that helping people got you investigated and suspended and gossiped about. Taught her that being good didn't protect you. Taught her that the front row seat her father promised would stay empty because strangers mattered more than she did. What kind of lesson was that? Ethan closed his laptop and went to check on Ella one more time. She was sleeping, finally peaceful. Her elephant was tucked under her chin. Her nightlight cast stars across the ceiling. He stood in the doorway, watching her breathe this child who asked if he was going to jail, who'd lost her mother and might lose her father too. Not to death, not to jail, but to a system that didn't care about truth. Tomorrow, he had the follow up interview with HR. Tomorrow, he'd present his evidence and explain what happened and hope that facts mattered more than fear. But tonight, watching his daughter sleep, Ethan allowed himself to wonder if he could go back to that restaurant, knowing everything that would follow. Would he make the same choice? The answer should have been obvious. It wasn't. The call came Friday morning. Mr. Cole, this is Mason Reed. We'd like to interview your daughter as part of our investigation. Ethan's grip tightened on his phone. Absolutely not. She was present that night. She's a material witness to the events in question. She's 8 years old. You're not putting her through that. Mason's voice remained professionally neutral. We understand your concern, but her testimony could be crucial in establishing what happened. We'd have a child advocate present, and you'd be there the entire time. This could help clear your name, Mr. Cole. The words hung in the air. This could help clear your name. I need to think about it. Of course, but we'd like to schedule something for Monday if possible. The sooner we can complete this investigation, the better for everyone involved. Ethan hung up and stared at his phone. They wanted to interview Ella, put her in a room with lawyers and HR representatives, and ask her questions about that night. Make her relive seeing a stranger on their couch, seeing her father miss her performance. But if her testimony could clear him, that evening he sat Ella down. Baby, my work wants to ask you some questions about the night the sick lady was here. Ella looked up from her homework. What kind of questions? About what you saw, what you remember. Will it help you? It might. Ella set down her pencil. Then I want to do it. You don't have to. Daddy, you're always helping people. Now I can help you. You're sure? She nodded, her face serious. I'm sure. I can be brave. You taught me that. Monday morning at 9 o'clock, Ethan and Ella walked into the HR conference room. It felt wrong bringing her here into this sterile corporate space with its bland artwork and uncomfortable chairs. Ella looked tiny in her school clothes, her backpack clutched to her chest like armor. Mason Reed was there along with Patricia Wells from legal and a woman introduced as Janet Kim, the child advocate. They'd arranged the room to be less intimidating: water bottles on the table, a box of tissues, chairs positioned to feel conversational rather than confrontational. Hi, Ella, Mason said gently. Thanks for coming in today. This shouldn't take long, okay? Ella nodded. I'm going to ask you some questions about the night a woman stayed at your apartment. Is that okay? Another nod. Do you remember that night? Yes. Can you tell us what you remember? Ella glanced at Ethan. He gave her an encouraging nod. I was at Angela's house, Ella said, getting ready for my talent show. Daddy called and said he had to help a sick lady, so he couldn't come to my show. How did that make you feel? Mason asked. Ella thought about it. Sad, because he promised to be in the front row. But also, Mommy always said to help people. So I understood. Patricia Wells leaned forward. What happened when you got home that night? The lady was sleeping on our couch. Daddy said she needed to rest because she was sick. Did your daddy seem upset or nervous? Ella looked confused by the question. No, he just seemed sad because he missed my show. Where did your daddy sleep that night? In my room, on the floor. He always sleeps there when I have bad dreams. Did you have a bad dream that night? No, but he slept there anyway. I think he wanted to make sure I was okay because I was sad about the show. Mason made notes. Ella, did the woman on the couch seem scared or upset? She was sleeping, but she looked sad. Even when people sleep, you can see if they're sad. How could you tell? Her face was crinkled, like when Daddy is worried about bills. The room went quiet. Ethan saw Patricia and Mason exchange glances. An 8-year-old's observation cutting through weeks of investigation and legal maneuvering. Did your daddy do anything to the woman? Mason asked carefully. Ella's face transformed. He helped her because she was sick. Did he hurt her? Ella's eyes went wide. My daddy doesn't hurt people. He helps people. That's what Mommy taught him. And that's what he teaches me. She was getting upset. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. That's enough, he said. Mason held up a hand. Just one more question, Ella. When you saw the woman the next morning, what happened? Ella calmed slightly. I asked if she felt better, because that's what you ask sick people. Daddy taught me that. What did she say? She didn't say anything. She just looked scared. I don't know why we're not scary. The words hung in the air. We're not scary. Is that all? Ethan asked. That's all, Mason said. Thank you, Ella. You did great. Ella climbed down from her chair and took Ethan's hand. As they were leaving, she turned back to Mason. Are you going to fire my daddy? Mason looked uncomfortable. We're trying to figure out what happened. I just told you what happened. He helped someone. That's all. She walked out, leaving the room in silence. In the hallway, Ella looked up at Ethan. Did I do good? You did perfect, baby. Will they stop being mean to us now? Ethan wished he could promise her that. Instead, he just held her hand tighter. I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so. That night, Patricia Wells sent Ethan a copy of Ella's interview transcript. He read it 3 times, seeing his daughter's simple truth laid out in black and white. My daddy doesn't hurt people. He helps people. 8 years old, and more credible than any adult witness could ever be. Victoria Lane sat in her penthouse apartment Saturday morning, her laptop open to the email from Patricia Wells. Subject: Witness testimony. Ella Coal Miner, confidential. She'd been avoiding it all day Friday. Told herself she was too busy with the quarterly reports, with the upcoming board meeting, with a dozen other things that suddenly seemed urgent. But the truth was simpler. She was afraid of what she'd find. Now, with nothing left to hide behind, she opened the file. The transcript was short, just 4 pages, but every line hit like a hammer. I was sad because he promised to be in the front row, but also, Mommy always said to help people, so I understood. Victoria read it again. This child had been sad. Of course she was sad, but she'd understood. An 8-year-old had more compassion than Victoria had managed. He always sleeps there when I have bad dreams. The simple domesticity of it. A father who slept on his daughter's floor when she needed him. Who'd given up his own bed to sleep on carpet because a stranger needed his couch. My daddy doesn't hurt people. He helps people. Victoria's hands shook. She scrolled down to Ella's final statement. I just told you what happened. He helped someone. That's all. That's all. 3 weeks of investigation. Thousands of dollars in legal fees. Ethan's job suspended. His daughter bullied at school. His savings depleted. His life turned upside down. Because Victoria had been too scared to see what an 8-year-old could see clearly, he helped someone. That's all. Victoria stood and walked to her floor-to-ceiling windows. 58th floor. The city spread below her like a map of territory she'd conquered. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd protected. And for what? To destroy a good man, to traumatize a child who'd already lost her mother. Her phone rang. Rachel. Did you see the testimony? Yeah. Good news, right? Kid corroborates the dad's story. No evidence of wrongdoing. This should wrap up clean. I'm withdrawing my report. Silence. Then, what? You heard me. I'm withdrawing the complaint. Tori, you can't just. The company has an obligation to complete the investigation regardless of. I was wrong, Rachel. Victoria's voice cracked. I filed that report out of fear. Not facts, fear. You filed it out of reasonable caution. I filed it because I was embarrassed. The words came out harsh. Because I'm a CEO who got drunk at a company event, and I didn't want anyone to know how badly I'd messed up. So I turned my embarrassment into his problem. Victoria pulled up the rest of the investigation file. Security footage showing Ethan keeping his distance. GPS records matching his timeline exactly. The note he'd left. The phone he charged. Every single piece of evidence pointing to the same conclusion. He'd done exactly what he said he'd done. Nothing more. Nothing less. And because of my fear, Victoria continued, an 8-year-old girl is being bullied at school. Her father can't pay rent. They're selling dead wives' jewelry to keep the lights on. Do you know what that kid said? We're not scary. Rachel, this child thinks I'm afraid of them. You were protecting yourself. From what? From kindness, from decency. Victoria's laugh was bitter. That man did everything right, and I punished him for it. What are you going to do? Victoria looked at the testimony again. At Ella's words, he helps people. That's all. I'm going to fix this. How? However, I have to. She hung up before Rachel could argue further. Victoria pulled up a blank document and began typing. Not to HR this time, not to legal. A personal statement addressed to the board. I am formally withdrawing my complaint against Ethan Cole. The investigation has proven conclusively that my initial concerns were unfounded. Mr. Cole acted with complete professionalism. His only action was helping a colleague in need. She paused, then added, I take full responsibility for the impact this investigation has had on Mr. Cole and his family. I am requesting his immediate reinstatement with full back pay and a formal apology from this office. Her phone buzzed. Another email from Rachel. Think carefully before you do something you can take back. But Victoria was done thinking carefully, done protecting herself at other people's expense, done letting fear drive her decisions. She'd seen the evidence. She'd read Ella's testimony. She knew the truth. Now she had to fix what she'd broken, even if it cost her. Especially if it cost her. Victoria found them at the park on Sunday afternoon. She'd asked Angela for the information explained what she was planning. Angela had been skeptical but gave her the details. They go to Riverside Park every Sunday, 2 o'clock. It's their thing. Now standing at the edge of the playground, Victoria watched Ethan push Ella on the swings. Back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm of ordinary fatherhood. He looked tired. Ella looked small. Victoria took a breath and walked toward them. Ethan saw her first, his hands stilled on the swing. Miss Lane? Ella jumped off, turning to see who her father was talking to. Her eyes went wide. You're the sick lady. Victoria hadn't expected that. I, yes, I am. Ella ran closer, studying Victoria with open curiosity. Are you feeling better? The question, so simple, so genuinely caring, nearly undid her. I'm working on it. That's good. Being sick is scary. Victoria knelt down to Ella's level. Her expensive pants would have grass stains. She didn't care. Ella, I need to tell you something. I made a mistake about your daddy. Ella's face got serious. What mistake? I told my work that I was scared when I woke up at your apartment. And because I was scared, they thought your daddy did something wrong. But he didn't. He just helped you. I know that now. But I should have known it then. The note he left me explained everything. But I was too scared to believe it. Ella tilted her head. Why were you scared? We're not scary. There it was again. That devastating observation. We're not scary. You're absolutely right, Victoria said. You're not scary at all. I was scared of myself, of what I couldn't remember. And I took that fear and made it your daddy's problem. That was wrong. Ella crossed her arms. That wasn't nice. No, it wasn't. It was very not nice. My daddy says when you make mistakes, you're supposed to say sorry. Victoria looked up at Ethan, who was standing a few feet back, letting this conversation happen. His face was unreadable. I'm sorry, Ella. I'm so, so sorry. Your daddy helped me when I needed it. And I hurt him. And I hurt you. And I'm sorry. Ella considered this with the seriousness only children can muster. Are you going to fix it? I'm going to try. Good. Because kids at school are being mean. And daddy can't pay for my after school program anymore. And we had to sell mommy's necklace. Each fact was a knife. Victoria felt them all. I didn't know. Grown ups never know how their bad choices hurt kids. But they do. A lot. 8 years old. Philosopher. Judge. Jury. Victoria stood and faced Ethan. Can I can I buy you both coffee? I need to explain and apologize properly. Ethan studied her. She could see him weighing it. Trust versus caution. His daughter's well-being versus his own anger. Ella, he asked, do you want to get hot chocolate? Ella looked at Victoria. Only if she promises to fix things with your work. Do you promise? Ella pressed. I promise. Okay, but I get whipped cream. For the first time in 3 weeks, Victoria almost smiled. Deal. They walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. The same one where this had started, though Victoria didn't realize that until they were inside. Ethan seemed to notice. His jaw tightened, but he didn't comment. They sat at a corner table. Ella with her hot chocolate, Ethan with black coffee, Victoria with tea she wouldn't drink. I read your daughter's testimony, Victoria said, from the investigation. Ethan's expression hardened. She shouldn't have had to give testimony. She's 8. I know, and I'm sorry for that too. Victoria wrapped her hands around her cup. But what she said, it made me see clearly what I should have seen from the beginning, that you were just helping someone, that's all. Ella perked up. That's what I told them. He helps people. Victoria looked at this child who'd been collateral damage in an adult's fear. You were right, and I was wrong. So you're going to tell everyone he didn't do bad things? Yes, I'm going to tell everyone. And I'm going to make sure he gets his job back with an apology. Ethan spoke for the first time since they sat down. We don't need, you need back pay for the time you were suspended. Victoria interrupted. You need the company to publicly clear your name. This isn't charity, this is accountability. Ella tugged on Victoria's sleeve. What's accountability? It means when you hurt someone, you don't just say sorry. You fix what you broke. Ella nodded, satisfied. I like accountability. They sat in silence for a moment. Ella focused on her hot chocolate getting whipped cream on her nose. Ethan watched his daughter with an expression Victoria was beginning to understand, fierce love mixed with bone deep exhaustion. Your daughter asked me why I was scared, Victoria said quietly. She said you weren't scary. And she's right. You're not. Your whole apartment was proof of that. The children's drawings, the photos, the note you left, everything showed exactly who you are. But you filed the report anyway, Ethan said. No accusation in his voice, just fact. I did. Because I was more concerned with protecting my career than seeing the truth. And I'm sorry for that. Sorrier than I can express. Sorry doesn't pay my rent, Ethan said. Sorry doesn't give Ella her friends back. Sorry doesn't undo 3 weeks of her being bullied because of something I didn't do. Victoria flinched. You're right. It doesn't. That's why I'm not just apologizing. I'm fixing it. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the board. I'm withdrawing my complaint formally and requesting your immediate reinstatement. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Why now? What changed? I read your daughter's testimony. I saw the evidence. I realized I'd almost destroyed a good man's life because I was too scared to admit I'd made a mistake. Most people don't admit their mistakes when it costs them something. Then I guess I'm not most people. Victoria pulled out her phone and showed him the draft statement she'd written. This goes to the board tomorrow. Full retraction, full apology, request for your reinstatement with back pay. Ethan read it slowly. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. This could damage your reputation. My reputation can survive honesty. Your daughter's childhood can't survive injustice. Ella had finished her hot chocolate and was watching them with interest. Are you and Daddy friends now? The question caught both adults off guard. I don't know, Victoria said honestly. I hurt your daddy pretty badly. He might not want to be friends. Ella looked at her father. Daddy, are you going to forgive her? Ethan took a breath. I'm going to try, baby. Good. Mommy always said forgiveness is important. Your mommy sounds like she was very wise, Victoria said. She was. Ella's face got sad. I miss her. I bet you do. They finished their drinks. Outside, before they parted ways, Ella hugged Victoria's legs. The gesture was so unexpected, so innocent, that Victoria froze. Thank you for saying sorry, Ella said, and for promising to fix it. Victoria knelt down one more time. You're welcome. And I meant what I said. I'm going to make this right. I know. Grown-ups should keep their promises. Right, Daddy? Ethan's smile was sad. Right, baby. They said goodbye. Victoria watched them walk to their car, Ella's hand in her father's. Both of them smaller somehow than they should be, diminished by what she'd done. But maybe not broken beyond repair. Tomorrow, she'd meet with the board. Tomorrow, she'd fix what she'd broken. Tonight, she'd sleep knowing she'd finally done what Ella had asked. Accountability. Not just sorry, but fixed. Monday morning, Victoria called an emergency board meeting. The conference room filled slowly. Board members looking annoyed at the 7 a.m. start time. Coffee in hand, phones are the usual Monday morning energy of people who'd rather be anywhere else. Victoria stood at the head of the table and waited for silence. I'm here to formally withdraw my complaint against Ethan Cole and to request his immediate reinstatement with full back pay. The murmurs started immediately. Victoria raised her hand. Let me be clear about something. The investigation proved conclusively that Mr. Cole did nothing wrong. Nothing. He helped a colleague who was unable to get home safely. He maintained appropriate boundaries. He documented everything. And in return, I filed a report that nearly destroyed his life. Board member Harrison leaned forward. Miss Lane, the company has protocols. I'm aware of the protocols. I'm also aware that sometimes protocols become shields for cowardice. We suspended a good employee for 3 weeks based on my fear, not facts. Patricia Wells, the legal counsel, spoke up. The evidence does support Mr. Cole's account. Security footage, GPS records, witness testimony from his daughter. It all corroborates his version of events. His 8-year-old daughter had to testify, Victoria said. Do you understand that we put a child in a room and questioned her about her father's actions because I couldn't admit I'd made a mistake? The room was silent. Mr. Cole has a daughter who was bullied at school because of our investigation. He had to sell his dead wife's jewelry to pay bills. His daughter asked him if he was going to jail. Victoria's voice cracked. This is what our protocols did to an innocent man and his child. Harrison shifted uncomfortably. What exactly are you proposing? Full reinstatement. Back pay for the 3 weeks he was suspended. A formal public apology from this office. And new protocols that require actual evidence before we suspend people. That could open us to liability. Liability for what? For treating employees fairly, for not destroying lives based on fear. Victoria slammed her hand on the table. We're already liable. Liable for defamation, for wrongful suspension, for creating a hostile work environment. The question is whether we compound that by continuing to treat Mr. Cole unjustly, or whether we do the right thing. The board exchanged glances. Victoria knew what they were thinking. She was a valuable executive. Firing her would be complicated. But publicly admitting they'd mishandled the investigation could damage the company's reputation. I'm prepared to face whatever consequences you deem appropriate, Victoria said. But I won't let my mistake continue to destroy this man's life when I have the power to stop it. After 30 minutes of discussion, the board voted. Reinstatement approved unanimously. Back pay approved. Public statement approved. Victoria left the meeting and went straight to her office, opened her email, and began typing. To all employees, 3 weeks ago, I filed a report against Ethan Cole, an operations employee, regarding events at a corporate dinner. I am writing today to formally retract that report and to publicly state the following facts. Mr. Cole acted with complete professionalism and integrity. When I was unable to safely get home, he ensured I arrived safely at his residence, maintained appropriate boundaries, and left a clear written explanation of events. My initial report was filed out of fear and confusion, not fact. The subsequent investigation proved conclusively that Mr. Cole's conduct was beyond reproach. His only action was helping a colleague in need. I deeply regret the impact this investigation has had on Mr. Cole and his family. I am committed to ensuring our company policies prevent similar situations in the future. Effective immediately, we are implementing new protocols requiring evidence review before any suspension is enacted. Mr. Cole will be reinstated immediately with full back pay and a formal apology. I hope this serves as a reminder that doing the right thing should be rewarded, not punished. Victoria Lane, CEO FinTech Division. She hit send. The email went to every employee in the company, including Ethan. Within an hour, her phone started ringing. Rachel, the PR team, other board members. Everyone had opinions about what she'd just done. Victoria ignored all of them. She'd said what needed to be said, done what needed to be done. Now she had one more thing to do. The school principal called Ethan on Tuesday. Mr. Cole, several parents have requested a meeting to discuss the situation. I think it would be good for you to attend, to set the record straight. Thursday evening, Ethan walked into the school auditorium, the same auditorium where Ella had performed 3 weeks ago, the same stage where she had looked for him and found an empty seat. Now he sat in the front row, where he should have been that night. Parents filtered in slowly, 30, maybe 40 people. Some faces he recognized from school pickup. Others were strangers. Marcus's mother was there. Emma's parents. Brad, who told him to keep Ella away from his daughter. The principal opened the meeting. Thank you all for coming. As you know, there have been concerns raised about Mr. Cole. He's here tonight to address those concerns. Ethan stood, walked to the front, faced the room full of suspicious eyes. I know what you've heard, he said. I know what people have been saying. So let me tell you what actually happened. He told them about the corporate dinner, about Victoria being unable to get home safely, about the choice he'd made to help rather than walk away, about the note he left, the distance he maintained the daughter who witnessed everything. That choice cost me my front row seat at my daughter's talent show, he said. It cost me 3 weeks of pay. It cost me my reputation. And it cost Ella her friends. He paused. But I'd make the same choice again. Because my wife taught us that when someone needs help, you help. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Mrs. Henderson stood up. The investigation cleared Mr. Cole completely. The company issued a formal apology. Murmurs through the crowd. I don't expect you to just take my word for it, Ethan said. So I brought someone who can explain better than I can. He nodded toward the back door. Victoria Lane entered. The gasps were immediate. Several parents recognized her from business news. A CEO walking into a PTA meeting. Victoria walked to the front with the same confidence she brought to boardrooms. But her voice, when she spoke, was different, softer, more human. My name is Victoria Lane. I'm the CEO Mr. Cole helped that night, and I'm the person who filed the complaint that started this. The room went completely silent. I filed that complaint because I was scared and confused. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize, and I reacted with fear. Mr. Cole did nothing wrong. Nothing. He left me a note explaining everything. He maintained complete professionalism. He went above and beyond to ensure my safety. She looked directly at the parents. In return, I nearly destroyed his life, and I traumatized his daughter in the process. Victoria turned to face Ethan. I owe you an apology that no words can adequately express. But I owe it to Ella more, because she's the one who's been bullied. She's the one who's had to be brave while adults made terrible decisions. She looked back at the parents. If you're teaching your children to avoid the Cole family, you're teaching them the wrong lesson. The right lesson is this: when someone needs help, you help them. Even when it's scary, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you something. That's what Mr. Cole taught his daughter, and that's what she's been trying to teach your children. Victoria's voice strengthened. Ella Cole is 8 years old. She's been bullied for weeks because of my mistake. She's watched her father struggle financially because of my fear. She's had to be braver than most adults I know. So here's what I'm asking. Give her back her friends. Give her back her normal childhood. Give her back the community she deserves. And maybe, just maybe, teach your own children to be half as brave and kind as she is. Victoria sat down. The room was still silent. Then Angela stood up. I've known Ethan for 3 years. I've watched him raise Ella alone, be both parents, work impossible hours to give her a good life. If we're judging him on one night, we're ignoring 3 years of proof. And that's not fair. Mrs. Henderson stood next. Ella is one of my best students. Kind, thoughtful, brave. She gets that from her father. One by one, people started standing. A parent Ethan didn't know. I owe Mr. Cole an apology. Emma's mother, tears in her eyes. I told Emma not to play with Ella. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Another parent. We should be grateful there are families like the Coles teaching our kids what real character looks like. Marcus's mother was the last to stand. I I started those rumors. I heard something and I spread it without checking if it was true. I'm sorry. To both of you. Ethan looked at Ella, who'd been sitting quietly in the third row. She met his eyes. He nodded. It's okay. Ella stood up on her chair so everyone could see her. You can all be friends with me again. If you want, I forgive you. 8 years old, standing on a chair, forgiving an entire community. Several parents were crying now. After the meeting, kids rushed to Ella. Can I sit with you at lunch tomorrow? Want to play at recess? I'm sorry, Ella. I'm sorry I was mean. Ella handled it with grace, accepting apologies, making plans, acting like the social pariah status had never happened. Victoria approached Ethan. She's remarkable. She is. She gets it from you. She gets it from her mother. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Victoria said, "For what it's worth, Sarah would be proud of both of you." Ethan's throat tightened. "Thank you for coming tonight, for saying what you said. It's the least I could do." Victoria paused. "I'd like to see you both again, outside of all this, if that would be okay." Before Ethan could answer, Ella ran over. "Can Emma come over for a play date?" "Absolutely." Ella looked at Victoria. "Do you want to come too?" Victoria looked surprised. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," Ella said. "You're part of the story now." Ethan smiled despite himself. "Part of the story." "Then I'd love to," Victoria said. They said goodnight. As Ethan and Ella walked to their car, she slipped her hand into his. "That was good, right, Daddy? That was very good, baby. Everyone's being nice again." "Yeah, and you got your job back." "I did. And the sick lady isn't sick anymore. I don't think she was that kind of sick sweetheart. But yeah, she's better." Ella swung their joined hands. "This was a good day." It really was. They drove home in comfortable silence. For the first time in 3 weeks, Ethan felt like he could breathe. 6 months later, Ethan arrived at the school 45 minutes early. The spring concert didn't start until 7:30, but he wanted to make sure. Wanted to claim his spot. Wanted to be absolutely certain that when Ella walked onto that stage, she'd look out and find him exactly where he'd promised to be. Front row, center seat. He brought flowers. A bouquet of sunflowers, Sarah's favorite. Ella had requested them specifically. "For good luck, Daddy," like Mommy used to bring. Other parents filtered in. Angela arrived and sat beside him. Emma's family took seats in the second row. Even Marcus's mother waved tentative but friendly. The community had rebuilt itself, slowly, imperfectly, but rebuilt. At 7:15, Victoria arrived. She'd asked if she could come, said she didn't want to miss it. Ethan had said yes. Over the past 6 months, they developed something. Not quite friendship, not yet romance, but understanding, mutual respect, shared commitment to Ella's happiness. Victoria sat in the second row, not wanting to take the front row from Ethan. Some spaces were sacred. 7:30. The lights dimmed. Kids filed onto the stage. Ella was third in line, taller, now her braid neater, because Ethan had finally mastered the YouTube tutorial. She wore the same costume from last time, silver stars in her hair. Her eyes scanned the audience immediately. Found Ethan, front row, center seat, exactly where he'd promised. Her smile could have powered the city. She waved. Small, quick, just for him. He waved back. The music started. Ella sang. Not perfectly. 9-year-olds never sing perfectly. But confidently, joyfully, without the fear that had shadowed her 6 months ago. Midway through the song, Ethan pulled out his phone. Not to record Angela was doing that. but to look at something, the old video from the performance he'd missed. He watched it for just a moment, Ella scanning the crowd, not finding him singing anyway, brave and alone. Then he looked up at the stage, at his daughter singing now directly to him, confident and loved. Same song, same child, completely different performance. Because this time, the front row seat wasn't empty. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He didn't hide them, didn't care who saw. These were good tears, earned tears. The song ended. Thunderous applause. Ella took her bow, then looked straight at Ethan and mouthed, "You came." He mouthed back, "Always will." After the performance, Ella ran off stage and straight into his arms. "You were in the front row. I promised, didn't I? You did, and you kept it." Ethan knelt down. "I will always keep my front row promises from now on. Always." She hugged him tight. "I know, Daddy." Victoria approached with a smile. "You were wonderful, Ella." "Did you see Daddy was in the front row?" "I saw, right where he belongs." Resolution: 600 words. 3 paragraphs max at the ice cream shop afterward. Ella sat between them with her chocolate chip cone already dripping, talking about next year's concert and whether she'd sing or do something different. Victoria laughed at something she said. A real laugh, not the polished CEO version. And Ethan caught himself smiling, not at the joke, at this. His daughter happy and safe, surrounded by people who showed up. 6 months ago, they'd eaten ice cream alone, both pretending everything was fine while their world crumbled. Tonight, Ella's only worry was whether to get sprinkles next time. That was healing. Not perfect, but real. Walking to the car, Ella grabbed both their hands without thinking the way kids do when they feel safe. She swung between them, humming her performance song, already planning next year. "You'll both be there, right? Front row." Ethan and Victoria exchanged a look over her head. Not love, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The kind built on truth instead of fear, on showing up instead of running away. "Front row," Ethan promised. "Always." That night, after Ella was asleep, Ethan stood in her doorway, watching her breathe. The elephant pajamas were finally too small. She'd need new ones soon. The braids he'd done that morning were still mostly intact. He was getting better at a lot of things. His phone buzzed Victoria. "Thank you for tonight. See you Friday." Pizza Friday had become tradition, small things becoming steady things. He looked at his daughter one more time. Front row dad, single father, survivor. For the first time in a long time, he believed they were going to be okay. Not because the world was fair, but because they had each other. And sometimes that was enough. The end.